So, so I'm Adrian Harwood. I'm the head of RSE at Manchester, and I'm here with Phil Bradbury, who's one of my senior engineers in the group. It's a bit of a double act today. So the talk is essentially split into two halves. I'm going to do a little bit of a background about operations management in RSE, a little bit about the technology that we use to construct this tool and why you might want to consider it in your group. And then Phil is going to do a bit of a demo of the tool in the second half of the talk, hopefully inspire you to join us in collaborating on its development and potentially consider adopting it if you're a team that doesn't have a solution for this and would like to consider using ours. Before I carry on, I do want to highlight the contribution of the RSEs in our group that have helped with this. So just give a shout out to Chris Lamb, Ian Hinder, Erdem Abbas, Marina Shedsko, Andrew Rowley, Donald Fellows, Chandina Samarakiran, and Johnny Taylor, all who have had a kind of hand in contribution to where this tool is today over the last 3 years of its development. Okay. I also apologize in advance for the shocking illustrations. They were Copilot's best attempt to giving me something interesting to put on the slides that were previously filled with words. So, a little bit of background. For anyone who has had to organize RSE work, you'll find that it's actually a bit of a nightmare. You've basically got lots of different projects that require lots of different skills. Your people are wonderfully diverse and have lots of different skills, but you need to keep track of that. And then you also need to work out how to keep them all busy in little blocks. You've got to make sure that there are as few gaps as possible, and those gaps are small, because most of the group's existences will require you to recharge their time. And if you're not very good at this, there's going to be large proportions of time that are not recharged, and finance people don't like this. So we don't want to get to a position where they start telling us to ship posts because people cost too much money when they're not busy. So this is an essential activity to really understand this sort of what we call Tetris of fitting all these blocks into people's available time. Now, you could just say, well, let's go out and buy some project management software off the shelf. And we could do that, but a lot of universities don't like to buy these things because they can be expensive. If your group's large, you pay per seat and it can really rack up the bills. Or the worst thing is they come along and say, yeah, you can have whatever you want, but then those tools don't actually have a data model that represents all the connected bits of information that you really need. So, of course, naturally, you end up building something yourself. You probably start off with a spreadsheet of doom. Again, very poor attempt of Copilot giving me a spreadsheet of doom, but this is what it came up with. If our spreadsheet of doom looked like that, I would probably not even have bothered writing the tool, because that's relatively manageable. But the spreadsheet of doom did not look like that, so we decided to do something a bit more robust. Now, I was inspired by Paul's RSE admin tool. Good shout out to Paul, who took some time, some while ago, to do a very similar thing and construct a tool that works and helps plan. And there are other groups out there. Mark, you've done something at Newcastle as well, where you build a data model that you know represents all the information that you need for your group, and then you build a tool around that data model. And of course, you know, just like the old adage about standards, we built our own as well. So that's the background to it, and Phil will demo that later. I just wanted to say a bit about .NET, because this is one of those things where it's like, what the heck is .NET? And it's sort of past is not doing it any favors. So .NET from the bad old days was basically a Microsoft-owned framework that they said, we're going to simplify how you build Windows stuff. And it was proprietary and included all of the technologies that are still around today in various forms. So ASP.NET for web development, WPF for building desktop apps, and its logo looked like that, which is just awful. And then came along .NET Core, and it's almost like they saw the light. They realized we should really consider cross-platform, and we should really make it open source. And that's essentially what they did. So it was reimagined, and it runs on Windows, Linux, Mac. It was open source. It's like, great, they're onto something here. And then they said, well, okay, the goal for .NET now is just, can it just do everything? And yeah, it sort of can. Does it do everything well? No, not yet, but it's definitely getting there. So all of those people that have stuck with .NET over that time realize that anything from .NET 5 to 9, which is roughly where we are now, is it allows you to build from one code base for web, mobile, desktop, and you're using all the same core technology, all the same core libraries, and it's actually pretty good. But of course, the only people using .NET right now are really the people that knew about it back in the day. So I'm giving this a bit of a shout out to say, don't rule this thing out. Maybe go and have a look at .NET again, because it's surprisingly good these days compared to where it came from. Okay, of course, you need to have to know C#, F#, VB.NET, or Iron Python, but all of those things will essentially run your .NET runtime. And you can even run C# code as scripts. You don't even need all the boilerplate. You can just literally pass it script one line in, just like if it were Python. So if you want to watch a video on somebody doing that, which blew my mind, there's a QR code there for you to check that out. So what is Blazor? So Blazor is the specific technology that we use out of the .NET framework to build this app. And it's basically defined as a web UI framework. And essentially, you can just write the entire thing in C#. You don't need to learn multiple languages. You don't need to bother separating front end and back end. You can just build the whole thing, one language, click of a button, and off you go. It supports a kind of component-based thing, so you can build reusable components and include them in your pages, so it's all nice and modular, nice and reusable. And it uses this funky thing called razor syntax, which is basically you stick bits of code inside your HTML file, and you can just write bits of HTML in and around it. So you don't have to worry about controllers or binding or all that kind of stuff. It just happens in one file, which is quite nice and neat, if you like that kind of thing. So why did I choose it? Well, it's simple, really. I knew C#, and we had a bunch of people in the team that also knew C# and had experience in .NET. So it seemed to make a lot of sense. You can write it quickly, you don't have to learn anything, and you've got people that can help you do it. I didn't know JS, so I thought, well, most web stuff requires JavaScript. I'm not going to learn that, don't have time. And actually, the developer experience, even if you're on Windows or if you're on any other OSs, is actually pretty good. It's quite mature, the tooling is solid, so why wouldn't I choose it? I obviously wanted something that's cross-platform. Well, it ticked the box there because all our web servers are running Ubuntu. And because I knew it was free, I knew it was open source, I knew it had open source component libraries, so I've listed a few of them there. Radzen, Blazor, Syncfusion, Blazor-ing. All these things exist, they're all free, just use them. You can actually combine them, you don't even have to pick one. You can just install them all. The whole app could have various bits of UI frameworks all in it, if you want. Should you use it? Well, I guess if you said yes to any of those previous things, it's sort of on the table. But if you've got people in your teams that know Java, they know C++, they're au fait with their sort of object-oriented languages, it's a very easy thing to pick up, frankly. Syntactically, it's very simple and very similar to things like Java. So if you already know those things, conversion is very easy. It's a shallow learning curve, so even if you want to do more complicated things in it, yeah, you can do that. It's obviously a compiled language, so it generally outperforms interpreted languages if you want speed and you need that kind of performance. It has static strong typing, so people like me that's a lovely comfort blanket to have that when you compile something, then this is the language for you. The code base is very stable, so they do major updates, but they don't break stuff very often at all. It's obviously frequently security patched, so all the minor stuff is all well supported. We never really have any major problems when a new version comes out. The web part of it, the ASP.NET, is a very mature technology. It's underpinned back-end web for decades. So tooling's strong, its performance is good, and it's well documented. Lots of online support, lots of video series on how to do things in .NET. There are loads and loads of libraries that end in .NET that are .NET versions of all the other popular things out there. But I'm not really here sort of flying the flag specifically for that. I think as an RSE leader, it's quite important to have some element of diversity and versatility in your group. And one of the things that .NET brings, as I said earlier, is that you can build web, you can build mobile, you can build desktop, all using the same framework. So you only learn the framework once, and you can actually deploy that thing in lots of different places, which makes quite a lot of sense if you need to bash things out quite quickly. So where did we end up with this? Well, when we first put this tool together, it wasn't about trying to project manage the nitty-gritty of how we do our work. We do everything in an agile methodology at Manchester, and we use GitHub projects for managing the tasks and the things at that level of granularity. This is about having almost like relationship management. It's like we manage all the details of the engagements, how long it will last more broadly, and what the capacity of the team is. And hence, it started out, version 1.0.0 in August 2022, as just doing three things. The data model held information about our people, It held information about their availability for work, project work, their capacity, and some details about the projects that those people then did. That's all it did, and it looked awful, as you can see from the screenshot. The hilarity of this is that because it's all nicely kept in Git, I could very easily just check out that tag and just run it. It just runs. And that's what it looked like. It was shocking. But did a job, filled the gap, served a purpose. You fast forward to, well, this month, I suppose, last month now, we've added all sorts of things into the data model, and that is really its strength. It connects data together that are quite often held in either other university systems that you can't get access to or don't have an API, but actually your reporting requirements are quite often to say, well, you know, you need information from all these sources to give you a decent picture of what is going on. So we just built out that data model. We added timesheeting, we added skills matrices, we added workload model analysis to work out how people are working and what they're working on. We even had a competencies framework in there, still in there, prior to the days of Direct, which is where we're at now. We have finance elements, and then the future is really, we then decided to build an API so that actually access to this data model can be made via API calls, which means there's less burden on the web app being in a particular state. If you want to build your own widget, you want to build your own tool, you can, and get access to the data model via an API endpoint. Obviously, it looks a lot better, but it's got a lot more features and a lot more sort of complexity built into it these days. Now, we have got a demo version. Don't all go rushing to it now to play with it, because Phil's got to do a demo on it. Don't crash in the whole system. I can't vouch for the fact of the stability at the moment, because it's being hosted on a Google Cloud platform micro VM. So maybe if it works quite well, that's a testament to the fact that it's not actually that demanding in terms of its technical requirements. But I will leave that site up for some weeks after the conference. So please do take a note of the URL and have a play with it and see if it's of interest to you. And that's sort of my pledge to you, appeal for collaborators on who would like to perhaps use it and help feedback into its development. Phil, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks. Can you hear me? Is that working? Yeah, goes on you. Right, let's see if I can actually find it. Yeah, so it's my job to give a demo. He's left me with 10 minutes. Cheers, Adrian. I will not be able to type my password at the same time as doing that. Right, wrong password. Brilliant. Okay, we'll wing it. Okay, yeah, so there's a couple of caveats. This is a system, it's hosted, as Adrian said, on a kind of free tier on Google, something or other. It's been fairly stable, so we're hoping it's going to be all right. But it is loaded with what could generously be called incomplete test data. I'm hoping it's enough to kind of give a picture of the kind of information it holds. And we're just going to have a little walk around it. So first thing is, actually, let's just log out to start with. Is it going to do anything? There we go. Right. Okay. Yeah. So a couple of caveats. We have three main modes for this system. There's sort of live, dev, and what we call local. So when you're doing development on it yourself, we run in a local mode, which is this is what we've kind of distributed to the server, and this gives you basically options to be able to log in as any user or any role. Obviously, it helps us with our development work if we can test the different views and stuff. Clearly, this is not how it would work at your place. We use ours with Shibboleth. We log in, we've got our username, and it allocates your roles based on that username. But for obviously this use, it's easier if we can just log in as anybody. So I'm going to log in as the marvelously named Sue per user. I'll just give a shout out to the actual names in a minute, because Copilot has generated some names based on some of the initials of our staff. So if you recognize your name and you don't like the one it's allocated you, my apologies, blame Copilot. So as Adrian said earlier, the main things it was dealing with were people, projects, and capacity. So we'll have a quick look at the people. If we go into the manage people system, that was nice and quick. We've got all the basic information there about people, their initials, who their line manager is, start dates, end dates. This one's the kind of key one for us, the current project work FTE. And basically that is our workload model system that we allocate, how we split up a staff member's time. So generally for a grade 6, we're looking at 0.8 development work, and the rest is for business as usual and self-development time. So this keeps a track of how much allocation they're allowed to have, and this obviously feeds into the capacity, because that's what it calculates on how much they're allowed to have and how much they have got. So, yep, skills there, as Adrian mentioned earlier. We also have some other stuff which we're not too interested in. And the key thing from this, because I'm logged in as a super user, I can edit it, and managers can edit their staff, but staff themselves can only view their own system and nobody else's. So we've got all that kind of stuff tied down. It's the basics. Quick look on the left there, we've got workload model analysis, which was stuff that was added later on, as Adrian mentioned. Development journey is our kind of competencies framework where we go in and you can log all these skills and how much you're working towards your objectives. That's for PDR usage basically. Timesheets was added most recently because they decided in the university to stop using the timesheet system and told us with a month's notice. So that was kind of put in there, which was tremendous fun. And current absences, which basically does what it says on the tin. It just allows us to see who's in and who's not in at that current time. So that's the kind of people aspect. Close that. We'll look at projects next. This is the main thing our staff use it for, is tracking their projects when they're project managers, and they can see who's allocated to their projects, assess whether they need to kind of get somebody else allocated if it's under-resourced, or indeed move people off if they're over-allocated. So I'm looking at Sue. She's not actually got her projects. I'm going to identify as Mavis Ledger, who is a manager and has some projects. So yeah, that first page that opens when you're logging in as manager is all to do with your projects. Gives lots of information here about, you know, whether it's fine, whether it's not fine, status of the project. There's loads of different buttons over here. I'm not going to go through everything because I've only got a few minutes, and you guys can play with this to say, did you give the URL on the last slide? We'll pass that out at the end as well. It'll be on these slides. So yeah, that's the projects. And if we have a look in, say, polypharmacy, that's an active project at the moment. We get a lot of information about agreed hours, planned cost, actual hours, all finance stuff, how, you know, usage, where we're up to at the moment and in the future, who's allocated to it. So loads of information you can kind of go through. And also there's an available projects as well, which the RSEs themselves can look at to see if there's anything they're interested in. The kind of final thing that the system was originally built for is capacity. I'll look at the development capacity there. Logged in as Mavis Ledger, I can see all the RSEs. Now, all the green means you can see 0 FTE allocated, 0.4 availability. So lots of green means they're under-resourced. If we were this underemployed, we would be unemployed. But our system doesn't look like this, but as I say, you could generously be called kind of incomplete data. So we look at Ankle Goblin, they've got some project allocation there. And again, we can click on that to give some more information about the project, how much FTE, the darker the FTE, the more they're allocated to it. And again, if more than one person was working on it, you'd have this total down the bottom. So the managers can easily see where they've got gaps that need to be resourced, and indeed whether people are over-allocated. So that's that side of it. Again, there's the one for management there as well. We do have project managers who have to allocate management time to look after each project. And again, they can assess whether they've got the ability to take on extra projects or not. And more to the point, Adrian, keep an eye on to see who's under-resourced or under-allocated, should I say. So, projects. And again, so we mentioned these skills was another one that's been added, so we can keep track of people's skills and their proficiency in them. This is, the RSEs will look after this. And if it's something they want to develop, they can give that option as well. And that allows project managers to pick out people who haven't got the skill but want to develop the skill. And if they think that project's suitable for them, they can allocate it to them, obviously, if they've got space to be able to take on that. I won't go through everything else because I'm kind of running out of time. But the key thing we're doing now is opening up this API, which, give me a second. So we've written an API wrapper around this. What's it called? Thank you. Should have opened that first. Yep. God, they've not been authorized. Right. Anyway, suffice to say, we've got the API wrapper, and because we get a lot of requests for different features, we haven't got the capacity to code it, which is why we're kind of wanting to get it out there to more different people to use. And if you guys can code stuff and help us, you know, collaborating with us, that's brilliant. But the way we're working at the moment is to open up this API to allow access. So if people don't know C#, we can open up an API endpoint so they can get the data, JSON format generally, and build in whatever they like. So, you know, you could write a Ruby on Rails, Python, if you want to do that. And that's fine. We can use those tools as well. We can host them and just make them available for all the people. And it saves just a few individuals having to code it in this system because we just haven't got the capacity. Our latest one, we are connecting to systems that we do have access to, but they're clunky, I'll describe it as, and that's very polite. We can get the data, but it's not easy. So we've now got access to the database directly. We're going to write an API endpoint, which will bring that data back into here. I'm going to write a page in here. It's visualizing the lead booking system. So it's useful data for staff to know kind of when their staff are off, for managers rather. But yeah, there is a system which is nothing to do with us. We have no control, no right access to the database even, but at least we can use it to visualize stuff. And that's the way we're moving forward, is this kind of API access, writing the endpoints and then allowing developers to do what they want with it. I think leave it there. Have we got any questions? Oh, right, okay. I think so. Anything I've missed out there, Adrian, you feel like commenting on? I'm only here because he volunteered me.
So I'll just preempt the first question: is why is it called CapX? Someone's bound to answer that. I asked that one.
Okay,
but it's called CapX because cap was for capacity, and then the X was for extended, since it went way beyond capacity. So I don't know if anybody had guessed that. Maybe we should have had some kind of competition. But there you go. Yeah, I don't think there's anything more we need to say. Yeah, go for questions.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. The top voted question seems convenient for managers, but do you have feedback about how those being managed feel about the system? I suspect I'd feel oppressively micromanaged by what I've seen there.
Okay, interesting. I don't know. I mean, there was bound to be people in the room who are indeed managed by this system. So, you know, I don't suppose anyone's going to say anything in front of me here. But I mean, we don't operate a culture in Manchester of micromanagement, or indeed as anything that seems oppressive. And I was hoping that anybody that would talk to an RSE at Manchester would realise that, and they would get told the true picture. So I do also like to think that if anybody did feel that way, that they would be very quick to tell me so. So all I can say is, from my experience, nobody has ever reported that. This may seem a bit not heavy-handed, but it may seem comprehensive, and I think that's possibly because the culture of RSEs generally is that a lot of stuff is done ad hoc, because that's how the groups have started. So I feel like, you know, professionalizing this as a career and professionalizing the teams that construct that, they need an element of this management, whether it's visible or not. So it may just be a bit of a culture shock to see it in this way, but I definitely feel confident that the people in the team don't feel that this is some mechanism to beat them over the head with.
Okay, maybe the person asking this has to spot the Manchester RSE and have a quiet chat with them at the coffee break or so. The next question is it open source?
It will be.
Will be, so it's not.
Very soon. Well, at the moment, it's just a question of figuring out to make sure that we've got the right kind of license in place, and then that's exactly our intention. And obviously to make sure that we can do what we can to encourage people to collaborate on developing it and feedback in things. It's the voices in my head. They're out loud.
Okay. One of the hardest problems the spreadsheet of doom has to handle is predicting the future. How do you record your speculative 3.2 FTE and 5 unresolved grants?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I mean, this thing, you can add data that will reach out into the future. So if you've got, you know, when the end dates of these engagements will be, when the start will be. We also have a system where you can assign people to things on a you know what I'm saying about? Yeah. A sort of preliminary basis, provisional, thank you, a provisional basis. So, and the system will highlight that and say they're assigned to this thing, but the bar itself is hatched to say it's not actually confirmed this is happening. That also applies to the state of the project as well, because whilst it's not been actually funded, we have to know and plan for the fact that it might get funded. And there's a whole other aspects of the tool that you can hopefully have a look at if you get a chance to browse it. We'll see how that information is represented to allow us to have a forward-looking picture that over time gets progressively more confirmed as we know things are actually happening.
we are still playing Tetris to a certain extent in that you can see the blocks of when we think these things are going to happen, and obviously they shift around. And it goes back to the first question that staff can also see what they're potentially allocated to, and if they're going to be over allocated in, say, 3 months' time, flag it up to the manager, and it's just easier to see that we've got that visibility in the system, that they can see what they're supposed to be working on, and we can see whether they're under resourced or overstaffed or whatever, you know, they've got too many projects. It's just easier to kind of see those blocks because it does take into account the provisional stuff as well. Yes, that moves around more than obviously the stuff that's fixed, but it just allows them that visibility, which I think is a good thing.
Okay, next question. That must have taken a lot of effort. Did you get funding or did you work on this in your free time?
It's just a couple of hours, isn't it?
Yes, it was a lot of effort. Did we get funding? No. Did I work on this in my free time? To an excessive degree. Yes. I saw one that flashed up a bit. I just dropped down the list now about we need it. If you need it, speak to me. And as soon as I can get a list together of who is interested, then we'll set up all of this, contributors, etc. And we'll get all that sorted so we can get the ball.
Yeah, it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem, isn't it?
Just to add to that, we didn't get funding specifically, but we have just released the timesheets module, if you want, to IT services as a whole, and we've managed to negotiate some development time out of those. So it's only a few days, but it kind of all helps. And they're now realizing that they want more changes, so we can get money from them within the university. But yeah, that's the only way it's kind of been funded. It's just in small chunks of development time.
Okay, I think we've got time for 1 or 2 more questions. Who rates the skills proficiency? Is it based on self-evaluation or is it assessed by managers?
So this is largely self-evaluation. So the skills element of the tool, it's designed to achieve 2 things. One of them is to help us better match people to work, because half the time we might have an idea as to actually what skills are required to deliver a particular project or even a particular task on a project. It breaks it down to that level of granularity. But we're not always entirely aware of how people's skills are changing over time. You might remember that they did JavaScript 5 years ago, but do they still consider themselves right for doing a JavaScript project? Well, this is on the RSEs to essentially communicate that to us effectively. You know, I want to learn this thing. Okay, you can add that to your skills matrix on there, flag it as to develop, and you will come top of our list of suggested people to do a particular task. So it allows us to match people more effectively to the tasks. And it's on them to maintain their own sort of skills profile in there. So the more accurate it is, the more up to date it is, the more likely it is that us as a management group can get people in the right place and get them doing work that they enjoy.
And again, because they've got time for self-development, if they see a project coming up that's got something they're interested in, they can use that time to kind of get the skills to the place they're needed for that project, and then maybe request to be put on the project. So again, it's just down to visibility. We don't know all the skills. We're nearly 50 people in the team at the moment.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, a lot of different skills. This is just makes it easier to for everyone to see what everyone's got as skills.
Okay, thank you very much. If you have any more questions that weren't answered, please grab the speakers, and thank you for this talk, and also thank you to all the speakers who have talked in this session.